Hello YouTube, my name is Billy and welcome to my kitchen. Tonight for the first part of this video I am going to be pulling double duty again, so I'll be the cameraman and the cook as well. Hopefully that won't stay like that for too much longer, but tonight's video is going to be pretty simple. It's going to be a small family holiday feast. Over the years, the size and the makeup of a family has really changed a lot. But that doesn't, regardless of the size of your family or your household, it doesn't mean that you can't have a really good holiday dinner. I'm going to show you a few quick and easy things you can do that'll be just as effective, and you'll still get that great holiday feel. Okay. For the meat for our holiday feast I'm gonna use a chicken, a pretty small chicken. It's more than, this is a little over a pound. It's probably less than 2 pounds, but it's good for 2, 3, or even 4 people. And I like using a whole chicken just because everyone can have their favorite piece of meat. You've got your thighs, your wings, your drumsticks, you've got your breast, and you've got white and your dark meat. Not everyone likes white meat. I don't. I prefer dark meat. It's just so much more tender and juicy. It's just really better all the way around. Now, you don't have to use a chicken. You could use a small turkey, or you could even use a duck. Duck is great. Chicken is great. I'm just not really a big fan of turkey, but that's just my personal take on that. To get your chicken ready, I'm just gonna lightly salt and pepper that, or actually what I'm gonna do, I have melted 1 stick of butter, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take an orange. I'm going to zest the orange and put the zest aside, and then I'm going to juice the orange. And I'm going to take the juice and mix that in with the butter. Okay, and then I'm going to pour that directly over the chicken. And then once I've done that, I'm just going to salt and pepper that, and then I'm going to top that off with another layer of foil over the top, and then put the lid on the roasting pan. And I'm going to roast that in the oven at 350 degrees for about an hour to hour and a half. It really depends on the size of your bird. And once you think it starts getting done, you're going to take the lid and the top layer of foil off, and then you're going to let that last 30 minutes bake uncovered. That way you get that really nice golden outside of your bird. Okay, if you look closely, I got the zest off of the orange, and I've also put the juice from the whole orange in with the butter. Now, one thing, if you've never used one of these food planers, be very careful because they are incredibly sharp. And when you're zesting not only an orange or any fruit for that matter, you don't want to push too hard. You want just gently in there, just enough to get that really dark, rich color off of the outside. When you press harder and you get into the white part, which is, well, I guess right in there, that's going to be really bitter. So you want to just gently go across the whole fruit and just get that top layer of skin, because that's where all your really vibrant, fruity sweetness is going to come from. Okay, now, here's my hand. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take the butter and the orange juice, and we're just going to drizzle that all over this bird. And this is going to keep this really tender and really moist. Okay. All right, set that aside. And then we're just going to lightly salt and pepper. This exactly what I'm doing right now would also work really good with duck. Turkey likes more savory, so you could probably do like melt some butter, fresh parsley, some rosemary, some thyme, and skip the fruit, and then baste your bird with that melted butter and those things that I just mentioned. But chicken and duck are really a lot more versatile. Okay, so we're just gonna salt and pepper that really well. And that bird is breast side down. That way the breast stays right in all of those juices. And okay, now with your zest, you're just gonna sprinkle that just all over the top. Gives it a really great holiday flavor. And it's okay if some of it falls down in the juices, because it's all gonna, it's just gonna add to the flavor. Okay. Okay, now all you're gonna do with that is you're gonna take another piece of foil and line the top of that. And you're not gonna push it in there because you want that to come off really easily towards the end. And then you're gonna put the lid on it. And stop. Okay, we're gonna take that, put that in your oven. And that's gonna cook for about an hour to hour and a half. It really depends on your bird. So that one's gonna be about an hour, and then for an additional 30 minutes, I'm gonna take the lid and that top layer of foil off and cook it open. That way you get that really nice golden brown top, and then you don't have to worry about your meat being dried out. Now, while our bird is in the oven, you can make really good cornbread dressing, and you don't have to have a lot. You can make a small batch, and it's really simple. You can just use one package or box of whatever cornbread you like, and you just follow the instructions on that to prepare that. And I'm gonna go ahead and put the cornbread mix, and we're gonna cook that exactly the way the instructions on whatever box, whatever one you use, and bake that. Just kind of work that around. Okay. And we're actually going to pop that in there with that chicken. There should be enough room for that small. And then while that's cooking, you want to take 4 pieces of bread. Now, most of your box or packaged cornbread mixes tend to be a little sweet. I use Jiffy, I like it, and it is a little sweet. But there's a really easy way to combat that sweetness. You're going to take 4 pieces of some pretty good bread, plain white bread, whatever bread you like. It doesn't really matter. And we're just going to pop these directly in the oven on an open rack. So be careful when you do that. And I'm just going to lay those out right there. Like that. Or you could put those in a little toaster oven or a toaster. The reason I'm not doing that is because of my little dog Molly. is absolutely terrified of anything and everything that beeps. So to save her a little bit of stress, we're just gonna pop those in the oven. Stop. Okay, now for our sweet potatoes. I've got 3 sweet potatoes. If you're doing a small family dinner like I'm showing you tonight, I basically just do about 1 sweet potato per person. So, and you could multiply that by even a large bunch, but that's enough. We're just gonna cut those in, just cut them up where they're a little bit smaller and they cook evenly and pretty quick. You can stop. Okay, now that we have our sweet potatoes all cubed up, you're just gonna kind of work them around till they're pretty even on top. And then you're just gonna take a stick of butter and you're just gonna pour that all over. Okay. All right. And now we're just gonna take about a 1/4 cup of packed brown sugar, and you're just gonna kind of work that all over. And that's good. Now, for our topping, this couldn't be more simple. I have a little bag of these honey toasted pecans that I've got at the grocery store. And we're just gonna take those and I'm just gonna do, I don't know, I'm gonna eyeball it. A good handful or 2, and I may need more, but we'll see. And then you're just gonna take your knife and you're just gonna work those. If you have a food processor, you could also use that. I'm not gonna use my food processor tonight because mine is little and I'm not quite sure it could hold up to these pecans. They're pretty hard. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just kind of break them up a little bit. That's probably about a cup. And I'm just gonna take and just kind of sprinkle that all over the top. And you could do more if you like. Okay, and then that's just gonna bake in the oven at 350, just until the sweet potatoes are tender. You can stop. Okay, once your bread is completely toasted, and it's okay if it gets dark. That's really what you want. You really want those dark pieces because that's gonna help take away some of the sweetness of your boxed or packaged cornbread. And when your cornbread is done, just take a butter knife. And you do not have to be delicate with this because this is all going to get crumbled up. And in fact, while it's still in the pan, I'm just going to kind of make it a lot easier. All right, and you're going to take that and be careful because this is still hot. You really want to work with all this stuff while it's hot. And then we're just going to take our butter knife and we're just going to go ahead and work that just until it's pretty crumbled up pretty well. Okay, and that's good. Now, I've got about 3 small cloves of garlic or 2 large ones. And while this cornbread is still hot, I'm going to go ahead and drop those in. That way the heat will go ahead and get that, you know, start releasing those flavors of the garlic into the cornbread. Now with your bread, you're just going to cut it up, or you could just use your hands and crush it up. It doesn't really matter. And while I've got all this going on, I've got 1 hard-boiled egg going back there. And we're going to add that, but that'll be towards the end. And you're just going to drop all that right in there. If you don't get your toast completely done, and don't be afraid of these darker bits again. There's still going to be a lot of moisture in there, and you want to cook all the moisture out. Okay. And we're even going to take, just dump that all in, because that's really good toasted flavor right there. Okay, and you're just going to take a spoon and just kind of work that up. Okay, and I'm also going to, right here I have about 3 medium-sized stalks of celery. I've sliced them lengthwise and then just chopped them up thinly, and we're just going to dump that in. Now normally I would use an onion in this, but somehow between getting the onion and getting home, I didn't get it home. So we're going to improvise tonight. I don't have the onion. I did get it, but it didn't quite make it home. So we're going to improvise. We're going to take our seasonings. You can stop for a second. Okay, I'm going to use 1 teaspoon of salt. Okay. And then a pretty heavy amount of pepper, and that's to taste. I know when I have enough pepper because once you start tossing it around, you'll start to see it. That's why I like using the coarse ground stuff. And not only that, you can just smell it. I'm not going to add a lot of salt because we're going to use chicken stock. And that has a lot of salt in it already, so I'm not going to add too much. Okay, then I'm going to do a teaspoon of thyme. same for rosemary. And since I don't have the onion, but I want the flavor, I'm going to use about a teaspoon of onion powder. Okay. And we're just going to kind of just toss that around. That looks really pretty, doesn't it? It smells good. Okay, now. You're gonna take your, oh, one more thing. The sage. Now sage is always a battle because, you know, some people really like it and some people don't like it at all. Now, fortunately, I do like it, and everyone in my house, believe it or not, does like it. So now that is to taste. So that's to everyone's taste, because everyone has their own feelings about sage. We like it, so we're gonna go heavily with it. That was about 2 teaspoons. And I may even do more. We really like it. It's a really good earthy flavor. Our egg has been boiling on high for about 5 minutes, so I'm going to take that off and just let that sit there for another 2 minutes. And then I'll run it under some cool water until it's easier to handle. And I am going to add a little bit more sage. Okay, now you're going to take your chicken stock. And this is depending on the size of your amount of dressing. There's no exact amount. You're gonna pour it in slowly, a little bit at a time, and just work it in. And you're gonna work that in until it's pretty moist. You don't want it soggy. That's why I say you just have to check it. You just work it around. Make sure everything is okay. That looks so good, and it smells so wonderful. I love the holidays. Holidays are just the food, because it's cold outside and you really get to forget about your diet. Not that I'm on one. And just make sure the bread is just evenly throughout the whole thing. Once it's baked and it all comes together, that crunchiness of the toast, and it's really nice. It's really warm and crunchy and okay. Now, how I know my dressing is the consistency that I want is I'm just going to use my hand, because there's really no other way to judge it. And basically all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my hand and I'm just going to kind of just squish it. And if it stays together, that's what you want. Okay? Now if you go in there and it's just like soup, well, either you're going to need more cornbread or more bread to soak up some more of that liquid. But this is what you want. It just, you squish it and it holds it holds together. Okay, and that's how you know it's completely perfect. It's exactly what you want. Okay, you can stop. That was a really good fry. Once your egg is done, you're just gonna let it cool off a minute just so it's easier to work with, and you're just gonna cut that up. And it doesn't have to be in any, now if you want to get fancy and lay it over the top, you could do that. I've certainly done it, but we're just gonna chop this up. Okay, and then we're just gonna take all that and dump it right in the dressing. Okay, and then we're just gonna give that a quick little toss again. In fact, I'm just gonna use my hands and just work it all the way through. And it doesn't have to be uniform. It can be, I just like the egg to be kind of like mixed throughout. And then I'm just gonna take a little baking dish and a little pat of butter, and I'm just gonna take my butter and just rub all over, just so it doesn't stick. I mean, it's not gonna be in the oven that long, so it's not really a big deal, but just so I know. Okay, and then we're gonna take that and put that right in. Okay, and then I'm just gonna use my hand. Your hands are kind of one of your best kitchen tools. You can really do a lot. You get a better feel, especially if you're, new to cooking. You really get a better feel as when you're working with your hands. Okay, and then you're just gonna bake that at 350 and just until it's done. Put a knife in. If it comes out clean, you're done, just like your cornbread. Get that, okay. You can stop. Okay, after 1 hour of the chicken being in the oven, I went ahead and popped in the sweet potatoes and the dressing in the oven, and now basically we're gonna check our bird, regardless of what it is. And you're just gonna take go down just enough in one of the thicker parts of your bird. And you just want to make sure that it's done all the way through. Okay, that needs a little bit more time. But we're going to finish that off the last 30 to 45 minutes in the oven uncovered. And that's going to make it, go ahead and finish cooking. And it's also going to make it really nice and golden brown on top. Okay, now it's been about 30 minutes. We're gonna go over here to the oven and we're gonna check our dressing. You can tell that it's done. It's a little darker on the top, kind of like a little crunchy. And then the way you know it's done, you can use a knife, or what I like to do is I just like to be careful, it's hot. Like that. It's just a little spongy, but you just don't go right into it. Once it's spongy, you know it's done, okay? And if you do want to check it all the way through, just use a little knife or whatever you have handy. And if it comes out clean, you're good to go. And that can sit, because that can be served at room temperature or, a little warmer. Now we're also going to go ahead and check on our sweet potatoes. They're bubbling a lot, so that's a really good sign. And then you're just going to take a fork And try to go to one of the thicker pieces. And if it's tender and your fork goes right through, you're good. And that's good. So we're just gonna take the same fork and just kind of stir that up. Just make sure everything's coated. Now, one thing I did not add to these is a little bit of vanilla, but you could definitely add vanilla. Just kind of drizzle it over the top. I didn't do that because the pecans have the honey, and then I added the brown sugar, so they're plenty sweet. Okay, so that's done and that's good, and those will stay hot for a pretty long time. So we're gonna set that aside as well. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and check our chicken again. Okay, and you see how nice and golden brown that is? That's perfect. And that you can really smell that juice. It's sweet and savory from the salt and pepper. And we're just gonna take our knife and the fork. And we've already checked that spot. Now we're gonna go over here, check that, the thicker side. And that's good, that's really good. Okay. And that's our small family holiday meal. And basically how I decided which sides I wanted, instead of just having tons of stuff for a small family and having tons of leftovers, which is not something we're big on, we just chose 2 favorites, or you could do 3 or 4. We all love dressing and we all love the sweet potatoes, so we went with that. Stay tuned for tomorrow night, and I'm going to do a broccoli and rice casserole that is so easy, and I'm also going to do classic green bean casserole, and we'll have those tomorrow with something else. And I'm also going to do a old-fashioned banana pudding later this week, so stay tuned for that. My name is Billy, and welcome to my kitchen, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.